Hello, my name is Brand Scott, and I'm a senior consultant with Heller Consulting. This presentation is designed to give you a few quick tips to maximizing your use of custom reports and dashboards. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about report types and creating a custom report type, take a look at using formulas to analyze your data over time, and create a dashboard. If you click the Reports tab in Luminate, you'll see Reports and Dashboards. You'll see folders on the left-hand side where you can place your reports. And when you click on a folder, you'll see the folders themselves appearing in the right-hand pane. When you look at the reports on the right-hand window pane, you'll find that some of them have little icons next to them. These icons tell you that these are reports that are from managed packages. For example, this icon here, the arrow going down, tells you it's a Convio report, and it's already been defined for you. Obviously, you can also create new reports, but a number of reports come with Luminate by default. All reports in Salesforce are built on what's called a report type. You can find out the report type that a report is built on by clicking on the report. So we'll take donations by type, going to Customize, and then you'll see the report type up in the left-hand corner. And for example, on this report, the report type is donations. So that's how you can determine the report type. Report types are predefined templates that allow you to create new reports using already defined object relationships and field sets. So when a report type's already defined, you know what objects you'll be able to see and what fields you'll be able to get related to those objects. These report types are also sorted into folders by base object. So let's see what happens if you want to create a report on an existing report type. In order to create a new report on an existing report type, I'll just click New Report. And Luminate is going to show me all the report types that are possible for this new report. You'll notice they're organized into folders by the base object, so by the object that you're getting the most information from. So for example, if you're doing a report on revenue, you might go into Donation Reports. Then within that folder, here are all the report types themselves. And you'll notice when I click on a report type, on the preview pane on the right, it'll show me a very, very basic preview of what I could expect by creating a report from that report type. So for example, I'll say donations and tributes. Click Create. It'll take a minute to load. And when the report loads, I would then start dragging over the fields that I wanted to see. I'll talk a little bit about some naming conventions that are used in report types in Luminate. So within Luminate, there are many predefined report types. And here's a tip that's going to help you find the right report type to use for your report. There are two keywords that are used in Luminate report types. One is and, one is with. If you see a report where two objects are joined by an and, for example, donations and tributes, that means that the data is included from the first object, donations, only if there's a corresponding data in the second object, tributes. So in the case of donations and tributes, you're only going to get donations that have tributes attached to them in your report. The opposite of that is the with keyword. With means all data from the first object is included along with the data from the second object. In our previous example, if you said use donations with tributes, then you'll get all the donation information, and for those donations that have tributes, you'll also see the tribute information for those records. So let's try this out. Going back into reports and selecting a new report type, you'll see under donations, again, there are donations and tributes. There are also donations with tributes. Scroll down a little further here. See, there are a lot of predefined report types. Okay, let's go into reports and show how this works with actual data. If I go to reports, I'm going to go to our sample reports. Now I have one already set up that says donations and tributes. When I click that report, and I run the report, it's going to give me 8 records total. So these are records that have a tribute with them. If we go into Customize, you'll see that's donations and tribute as the report type. Conversely, if we go into the report that's built on donations with tributes, we run that report, we'll see in this report, this is all of the tributes or all of the donations in the database, regardless of whether they have tributes. And then if there's a tribute there, the data will show up in the report. So that's the difference between and with and how they're used to build report types for Luminate. Again, hopefully that'll help you sort through the multiple report types a little bit easier. Because there's so many report types already predefined in Luminate, you always want to check for an existing report type before you add a new one. One thing you don't want to have happen is that you have multiple report types that contain the same information. You can't remember which one to use, and you have to go back in each time and check and see what the report type looks like. So always try to use an existing report type before adding a new one. If you do need to add a new one, however, if you can't get the data that you're looking for in the way you need it, there is a possibility of adding a new report type. So let's look at how that happens. In order to add a new report type, you simply go to your name, Setup, Create Report Types, and then choose to create a new custom report type. So let's walk through that. Go up to my username, Setup, and of course this assumes that you have administrative access and the right access rights to be able to get to the application setup. Go to Create Report Types. This is where all your custom report types live. So anytime you already have defined one, a report type, you'll see that you can go in and edit it at any time or delete it if you find that you've created something over again. In order to add a report type, there are 3 steps. The first thing is to define the report type. The second is to add objects to the report type. And the third is to add fields to the report type. If you go through these 3 steps, you'll end up getting what you need for your ending report. Let's walk through it. Let's take the first step, defining the report type. In this step, you're going to choose the primary object, the report type name, and the deployment status. The primary object means really what's the nature of the information that you're going to get out of this report. So, for example, are you primarily getting information about a donation or about a person or about a campaign or some other object? The report type name, self-explanatory. What am I going to call this report and how will I remember what I just created? Very important. The last is the deployment status. The question there is, should everyone be able to use this report type or just administrators? See how this looks in the wizard. So if I click New Custom Report Type, our first step again is define the custom report type. In this case, I'm going to choose to have a report type based on donations. So I'll scroll down, and one thing you'll notice is there's no donation listed here. That's because Luminate has calls opportunities donations. So on the Luminate front end, donations are named donations, but on the back end in native Salesforce, donations are called opportunities. So that's just something to know. A few of the objects are renamed with Luminate, so something to be aware of. So I'm going to choose the opportunities object instead. I'm going to give it a label. Let's call this donations with team raiser names. Okay. I'm going to add a description. I'm going to choose where I'm going to put this report. For now, I'm just going to store it in other reports. And then I'm going to choose to say, for this report, I'm going to keep it in development. Now, in development means that only administrators and administrative delegates can see the report. So it's really a reporting process. It's not ready for prime time yet. When I save and create this report, at a later time, I can go back, once it's all together and finished, I can go back, edit it, and change that to deployed. For right now, we'll leave it in development. Then I'm going to click Next. Step 2 in building a report type is adding the objects that we want to report on. So what we're going to see is a wizard that will walk through adding different objects to the report. And one of the things you'll notice is there are only so many objects that can be used at any step in the project because they have to be logically related in the back-end database. And one of the things that native Salesforce does, that Luminate does, is it's managing the joins between objects for you, so you don't need to do that. That's great on the one hand because you can't mess it up. On the other hand, there are some limitations to how you can relate objects to each other. You are able to have 4 levels of definition when you link objects, and there's this great graphical wizard that will show you how the objects are relating to one another. So let's see this in the database. So I'm back in my new custom report type, donations with TeamRaiser, names. And you'll see that Salesforce or Luminate has already given me the opportunities as my primary object. That's what I chose in step 1. If I click here, I'll be able to select a second object to relate to my primary object. So let's say I'm going to go down and grab TeamRaiser registrations. Okay. Now as soon as I have that second object, you'll notice object A was opportunities, object B, the circle for object B appears, and this is a typical Venn diagram, so you see the overlapping circles. I have some options on how those objects can relate to each other. And the first option, everything in opportunities must have a related record in TeamRaiser registrations. That would be an AND join. So the resulting join set would be just those records that have data in both objects. If I change this to the second option, A records may or may not have related B records, you'll see I get all of A and information from B when it's there. If I'm using the with keyword, because I'm going to follow the standard Luminate conventions, with means I want everything in A and then B data if it happens to be there. So I'm going to stick with this type of join. I can click to relate another object. Let's see what options I have here. So you'll notice that each time my option list gets a little bit smaller. Let's see, why don't I just go ahead and grab donations received as well. And you'll see here again, I have that C object, C circle that comes into play. I don't, in this case, get an opportunity to further define those types of relationships. So if I had said use an AND here, I would have had the ability to use an AND in the third object as well. But because I went ahead and chose, it's just giving me a warning to tell me that I'm changing the basic schema, and that's fine. If I choose that AND, then I don't get a chance to redefine it, which makes sense, because essentially I'm saying everything that's in A, and then data from B and C. You can go up to 4 levels. If I wanted to, I could choose any of these types of objects. Let's say content. And then I'm going to get a box that says that the object limit is reached. So that's how the wizard works for relating objects. I'm just going to close this, Close these two objects, because really what I want is opportunities and team ranger registrations. And I'm content with that. Now I'm going to say save. The third step in the process of creating a report type is an optional step. It's called adding fields to report types. It just shows you go in and edit the report type or go into the next phases we'll see in a minute. The fields available for reports are way at the bottom of the mirror, and I'll show you in a minute. Sometimes it's easy to miss this part. Essentially, click to edit the layout and then drag and drop fields, and we'll walk through that. The big thing to note here is that when you choose your objects, there are certain sets of fields that are already available for you by default. So you don't need to go in and add every field to your report. But some fields get left out. They don't include everything. And every once in a while you'll find that you need a field that's not automatically listed in the report type. So here I am back in my custom report type. We've got donation with team raiser names. We've got the report definition, the object relationships, which we can edit. And then down at the bottom we have fields available for report. Like I said just a minute ago, let's say edit layout. Well, before we do that, you'll see it shows me that I have 145 fields from opportunities and 20 from team raiser registrations. So I've probably got what I need. But again, you'll find that every once in a while you need to go and add a field. So let's go to edit layout. Okay. So what you're seeing here is a nice little grids and a graphical drag and drop structure. Everything that you see in gray on the left-hand pane is already included in your report. So you already have access to those fields. You don't need to do anything to make them show up. They'll already show up on your drop-down menu. If I scroll down, I'll also see then team raiser registrations and what fields are available. If there's a field that I know I need that's not available, I can go to Opportunities Fields, and this will show me everything that's grayed out has already been added. So I'm going to go and find if there are any fields. I know there have got to be some, or maybe not, that have not been added. Let's try in Team Raiser Registrations field. Oh, already, right off the bat, I see one that hasn't been added. So I'm going to take Related Transactions and just drag and drop it over here. Another great opportunity is you can go and add fields related via lookup. So fields that are not on your primary however many objects, but that you can get to through a lookup field. You do that by just go to Opportunities, click on Add Fields Related to Lookup, and you'll see all of a sudden that opens up whole new worlds of information you can get on this report. So let's go to Accountant. Let's go to Donor, actually. I'm going to say give me the account name, give me whether or not I can, what the email address is, and whether or not I can email this person. I'll click OK. Okay. And now you see that I have 169 fields in my layout. You'll see that the fields related via lookup have shown up on the grid for the object they're related to. Having added that, I'm going to click Save. So to use this new custom report type, you would go to Reports, New Report, and this is where I have to remember where I put it and what I named it. So in this case, I put the report template in Other Reports and named it. I have to scroll down a little more. There are a lot of report types out there. So if I can't find it quickly by scrolling, I can use the Quick Find button. Type in Donations. You'll notice that starts to show me everything no matter what everything that starts with donations, no matter what the folder is. Scroll back down to other reports, and there it is, donations with TeamRaiser names. Click Create. And at this point, you would create the report just as if you were creating it from a report type that had already been defined. And all our opportunity fields are here, including the lookup fields, and we'd go from there. So to recap, to add a new report type, there are 3 steps. Define the report type, add objects to the report type, add fields to the report type if necessary, and then you use it just as you would any other report type. One thing that many organizations need to do is compare revenue over time. So let's take a little look at doing that. One way to do this in Luminate is actually to create hidden fields on the donation record that capture certain information and then use those hidden fields to create a summary in the report. Understanding how this technique works, the technique of adding a field to an object and then using that field to make calculations in a report, will open up a whole new range of reporting possibilities. So I'm going to show you a fairly simple report so that you can get the hang of how to actually use this technique. In this report, we're going to have donations and then compare them by month, and across year. So the idea of the report is I want to know in April of 2011 how much revenue was generated and how much in April of 2010 was generated, and be able to create sort of almost a matrix comparing this year to last year. In order to do that, I'm going to create custom fields for month and year on the opportunity object. And I'm not going to add them into any page layout so that they don't interfere with what my users are doing. I'm going to do that by using some formulas that are listed here. Then I'm going to create a report that includes these month and year fields, month, year, and month text. I'm going to group by month and group by year. So let me just walk through how this works. This is another process that requires administrative rights. So if I go to my username, setup, scroll down to customize, and then go to the opportunity object. Remember, Luminate uses donations for the front end, but in the back end it's opportunities. If I go to fields, I'll see all the standard fields on opportunities and then also all the custom fields. And again, if you remember this little icon that you saw in the report types or the predefined reports, same thing. These are managed fields that were installed by Convio in the Luminate installation. I'm going to scroll down to these fields that I've already defined. The first one was month. So I'm going to scroll down, and I have the field called month to compare. If I go in and edit that field, this field uses what's called a case statement to take the close date, use a formula called month, and the month returns a number for each month. So January is 1, February is 2, March is 3, and so on. So I take the close date, take the month, and a case statement evaluates that first entity. Then essentially it's almost like an if-then statement. Says, if the case is 1, then put the text of January. If it's 2, February, and on down the line through December. The last value I always put in is error, just so that I know that something will appear on the report that will warn me and alert me that there's something that's not supposed to be there happening, that's happening that's not supposed to be. So I always throw in an error value as well. So that's our months to compare. Going back to the field list, the other thing that I need to know is the year. So I have the month, and now I need the year. So I have a field called year that's a formula. And in that formula, again, I've just taken the close date. I'm using a formula called year, which returns the number of the year, so 2011, 2010. And I'm also adding something, I'm converting that number into text. And the reason I'm doing that is because if I leave it as a number, it behaves a little bit differently than how I would like it to behave. So it behaves like a number, and it also will by default add the 1,000 signs. It would be 2011. And what I want is the text of 2011. So I'm using that text function to make that happen. So now I have the fields on the opportunity record, on the opportunity object, that I need to create my report. And again, just to note, when I created these fields, I chose to uncheck the box that said add to page layout. So they're not on any page layout. They're accessible to everyone, but they're not on any page layout. So my users won't see them and wonder what those fields are doing. I've gone back to the Reports tab, and I've already created a report that's called Compare by Month and Year. I'm going to go ahead and open that report. And when I open the report, you see here that it's a very, very simple report. There's no formatting to speak of. It's just to demonstrate this point. So if you were creating a report for your organization, you would probably it would probably look a lot different. But you'll see that I've got up here under months to compare, I've got the text value for the months. And within that month, then I've got the years. These are years for all the donations in the database, and I've happened to have them sorted lowest to highest. So I can say in April of 2011, I brought in $1,500. In April of 2010, $16,000. So you could see how this, and again, you have month of August, December, February, etc. So you can see how this might be useful when you're doing comparison over time. And just again, to show you how those fields were used, I'm going to click Customize. You'll notice we were talking about report types. This is the report type of just straight donations. Nothing tricky there. And then all I've done is used, let's look at the details too. Two very simple groups. I took the year, and over that I put the month. And I've got some summaries set up for each level of grouping. And on the detail level, which again wasn't displayed in the report, I can also put in the name of the account or any other information I want, including the donation amount. So looking back at the slide, again, this is a very simple technique. You create a field on the opportunity that will do something that you want it to do, use that field in a report to summarize the data in a new way. In this case, we used this month feature that became text of the month and the year feature. The last thing I'm going to show today is how to add a custom report to a dashboard. And dashboards are very handy, especially if you distribute them to your fundraisers or executives, people who want those snapshots of data and how you're doing those snapshot reports frequently over time. It's always nice to have them on a dashboard. At the most basic, to create a dashboard, you would create your report first, go to the Dashboards tab, click Go to Dashboards List, click New Dashboard, add a display component, and then add the custom report as your data source. Let's walk through that. Now you may not have the tab for dashboards already included in your favorite tabs. If not, that's okay. You just click on the plus sign here to go to all tabs, and then go to Dashboards. I'm going to go to the dashboard list by clicking on this link here. And in this case, I'm going to create a new dashboard. You could also add this to an existing dashboard, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new dashboard. I'm going to choose a display component. And in this case, so for this I'm going to choose the donut chart component and go to my data source and add my custom report. Now in this case, this may not be exactly the kind of chart that you'd want for this report, but it gives you a sense of how you can add a custom report to a dashboard. So we'll save it. And then be able to display it when I go into my dashboards. So now when I go to my dashboard tab, I'll see the compare by month report data in the donut chart here. So this is the end of the presentation. I hope you've learned a little bit about custom report types and how you can create dashboards.